So, a men's hoops doubleheader coming your way. The Huskers host the Wildcats, followed by the Nittany Lions and the Ducks. Coverage begins with the tip-off show, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. So let's get into the weekend of games here with Andy. And let's start with Nebraska and Northwestern. The Huskers nearly pulled off that huge comeback against Purdue. They get a Northwestern team that gave Michigan a really good game before fading down the stretch. These two teams already played in Evanston with Nebraska winning convincingly. What do you see here in Lincoln?
Well, let's first deal with the freshest of the two, and that is Northwestern. And I'll tell you, Dave, I was so impressed with the way the Wildcats played throughout the course of the 40 minutes. Sort of just got overwhelmed, as many teams do against Michigan. But they need Arrington Page to play the way he did. You know, it's been no secret that he sort of hasn't met the moment in terms of his energy level and buy-in, but he did that night. And look, Northwestern still could be a factor to be a disruptor down the stretch and, you know, maybe win a couple games or something. I mean, I know they're not going to the postseason, but they could disrupt the way the standings play out if Page can help out in that way. And the freshmen, you know, clearly have played as well, you know, and could do some damage, you know. But for Nebraska, there's no secret, no margin for error. Take care of business against the teams below you if you want to stay in this race to get that triple bye.
Yeah, no doubt. And they did that when they took on Northwestern at Evanston, held them under a point per possession and did a great job, hit 11 threes, but they were also phenomenal inside. This is a game clearly Nebraska has to win for the goals that they have to stay within reach. UCLA, man, this is a challenging stretch coming up here for the Bruins. They got Michigan, Michigan State on the road, and then they come home for Illinois. What do you think against a Michigan team that maybe got a little bit of a wake-up call in that game in Evanston, kind of showing them that, hey, you got to show up every night in this league?
Right, and look, for Michigan, you know, it's weird. Outside of Wisconsin, their other tough games were against teams at the bottom. You know, Penn State, Maryland, and Northwestern. So clearly this Michigan team does rise to the challenge when they have a peer, you know, with them. And they're going to treat UCLA as such. For UCLA, you know, Donovan Dent has suddenly woken up and has played the way we expected, and probably the Bruins did as well when he arrived. That's a must. But what we saw from Michigan the other night is if there are turnovers or foul problems from their backcourt of Cadeau and Burnett, oh, here comes Gale and McKinney and Kaysen. So, they, you know, it's like hockey line shifts. They can keep coming on the perimeter. And that's where Dent is going to run into some trouble because Sky Clark, you know, isn't available, hasn't been available. And without him, it's just so much pressure on Dent to deliver. I mean, someone like Tyler Bilodeau is going to have to, he's going to have to not just make shots, but he's going to have to deal on the rim. You know, and same with Xavier Booker, for sure. He's got to stay out of foul trouble with the sort of just the strength of that Michigan front court. But I fully expect, you know, cleared national audience on Saturday afternoon in Ann Arbor, wake-up call from Dusty May. You heard him in that post-game locker room at Northwestern, how he said, I think his quote was like less than 1% of teams would have come back from 16 down in this situation. I mean, they're clearly in the top 1% this season in college basketball. They've got a quiet confidence, almost cockiness about them, but it's not too arrogant. They just get their business done, and I fully expect them to do so against the Bruins.
After you got Purdue and Duke, so a really interesting stretch coming up here for Michigan as they try to solidify not just the number one seed in the NCAA tournament, but also, of course, that number one seed we were talking about in Chicago. How about Purdue? Fresh off that narrow escape against Nebraska, and now they head to Iowa. The Hawkeyes trying to bounce back after that surprising loss to Maryland, Andy.
Well, we did this game earlier this season, and if there had been maybe 5 to 7 more minutes of game clock, I think Iowa might have won. I mean, they had a really good surge late in that game and caused some problems for Purdue. Now, that was a long time ago when Iowa was playing much better, actually, than they are now. And this comes at a bad time for the Hawkeyes. You know, kind of surprising the way they played at Maryland. You saw Maryland beat Minnesota, so the Terps have turned things around, but that was a troubling loss for the Hawkeyes. They're going to have, this is not a get well game to have Purdue coming in and Purdue probably smarting after what happened in the second half and overtime to escape Nebraska. So the Boilermakers come in there probably a little chippy after the way they played. And for Iowa, it's going to be a real test to certainly deal with Braden Smith and now a Fletcher Lawyer who's playing much better. Maybe he's taking a lot of shots, but he's hitting big shots. That's a big difference. And look, Purdue has the advantage inside when Oscar Clough is playing the way he did in overtime and making plays. And obviously, if they can, if Trey Kaufman-Renn can play up to his potential, Purdue has the advantage. Can they escape with a road win? I think so.
I think that was maybe the most encouraging thing to come out of other than, winning the game against Nebraska, but just the notion of Oscar Clough and Trey Kaufman-Renn playing together and playing well. I mean, I think there's been a lot of question about how do you meld those two? How do they coexist in the front court and get the best out of both of them? I think we're starting to see that a little bit. So give them a ton of credit for figuring it out. I do want to ask you about Ohio State against Virginia. This is a really interesting game. I was talking to Jake Diebler about it when I was in town to do their game on Wednesday night against USC, and he was telling me that they scheduled this game because they wanted to create an opportunity late in the year to get a quality win. He was saying that he talked to John Shire and Brad Underwood about the game that they played against one another last year, a game that didn't go great for Illinois, and yet Underwood said he thought it was a fabulous thing to do, to play a team of that caliber this time of year. And then you add on the fact that it gives Ohio State a chance to get a quad one win. They technically have one now because Northwestern's 75th in the net, so just by the skin of their nose, that is a quad one win. I don't think anyone in the committee room is going to look at that and say, wow, that's really a great win. Ohio State needs this one, Andy.
Desperately, and I think it's brilliant scheduling. We've talked about it earlier. Duke is playing Michigan next Saturday, which I think is a great scheduling game. But here's the deal with Virginia. 10-2 in the ACC. Ryan Odom's done a great job resuscitating the program a year and a half after Tony Bennett was gone. They're 21-3 overall. They got 4 double-figure scores. In their last 3 games, Virginia has held teams to 47, 58, and 59 points. It's really going to push Ohio State on the offensive end to get going. But, yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, Virginia is 18 in the net. This would be a huge win for Ohio State on a neutral court in Nashville if they can get it. And the selection committee is human because, they'll pay attention. They say they don't, but come on. Obviously, they have all their day jobs. Football's going on. They're really locked in now. And this is a game that I know they're going to be paying attention to this weekend, with next weekend the committee meeting and putting out their top 16, which Virginia, by the way, would be in if it were today. So Virginia would be a top 4-line seed today. And so this really would, I think, raise some eyebrows if Ohio State could beat Virginia on a neutral court.
It's a huge opportunity. I don't think there's any question about it. They've got 7 regular season games left. 5 of them are quad one opportunities. We talk about that hole in the resume for Ohio State, a number of chances to fill in that void. And this is a great one because, as you said, it's a neutral court, a chance to simulate that NCAA tourney environment, but most importantly, to pick up a really good win.